Civil unrest and class tensions. Both Rome and the United States have faced significant internal pressures from growing inequality and unrest among their lower and marginalized classes. These tensions, rooted in economic disparity and social exclusion, reveal common patterns in how societies struggle with fairness, equity, and reform. In Rome, the problem of inequality became apparent as the Republic grew in power and wealth. The spoils of conquest enriched a small elite: senators, generals, and wealthy landowners, while the common citizen, especially the small farmer, struggled to compete. Veterans returning from military campaigns often found their farms in ruin, forcing them to sell their land to wealthy patricians. This led to the rise of vast estates, or latifundia, worked by slaves, and the decline of the independent Roman farmer who had once been the backbone of the Republic. The growing inequality culminated in widespread discontent. Reformers like Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, known as the Gracchi brothers, tried to address these issues by proposing land redistribution laws. Their goal was to break up the large estates and give land back to the dispossessed, hoping to restore Rome's traditional social structure. However, their reforms met fierce resistance from the elite, who saw these changes as a threat to their wealth and power. Both brothers were ultimately killed, and their deaths marked a turning point in Roman politics, highlighting how deeply entrenched inequality could destabilize society. In the United States, the story of inequality has taken a different form but echoes similar themes. Wealth has often been concentrated in the hands of a few, particularly during periods of rapid economic growth, such as the Gilded Age and the modern tech boom. At the same time, marginalized groups, whether defined by race, class, or gender, have fought for a more equitable share of resources, rights, and representation. The U.S. has seen a series of social reforms aimed at addressing these imbalances. The Progressive Era sought to curb the excesses of industrial capitalism by introducing labor protections and breaking up monopolies. The New Deal responded to the Great Depression with programs to help the poor and unemployed. More recently, the Civil Rights Movement fought to dismantle institutionalized racial inequality, while modern movements like Occupy Wall Street and calls for wealth tax reforms target economic disparities. Both Rome and the U.S. have experienced how inequality can strain the social fabric. Concentration of wealth and influence in the hands of a few creates tensions that eventually boil over, whether in the form of street protests, political reform movements, or even outright violence. In both cases, reform has been a balancing act, an attempt to address inequality without completely disrupting the existing system. The parallels are striking. Rome's Gracchi brothers and their bold but ultimately tragic reforms mirror the challenges faced by American reformers who, despite their efforts, often find themselves up against entrenched systems of power. In both societies, inequality isn't just an economic issue, it's a challenge to the core principles of justice, stability, and inclusion. As we look at these patterns, one thing becomes clear: the struggle to balance wealth and power with fairness and opportunity is a defining feature of all great civilizations. And like Rome, the United States must continuously address these tensions if it hopes to maintain its strength and unity in the long term.